And we're getting a picture on the TV. I believe they're setting up the flag now.
Great.
I guess you're about the only person around that doesn't have TV coverage of the scene.
That's all right, I don't mind a bit. How is the quality of the TV?
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. It really is.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman of the United States House of Representatives Committee on Science, Space and Technology, and the representative from the 4th District of Texas, the Honorable Ralph Hall.
Walk up to virtually anyone in the street and they'll be able to tell you the names of the first American to orbit the Earth and the first Americans to land on the moon. John Glenn's flight in the Mercury capsule was the first U.S. orbital manned mission. Apollo 11 was the first to land men on the moon and return. Our school children will be reading about them for hundreds of years. The degree of difficulty was high. The risk of failure arguably was still higher. And yet these men were willing to embrace that peril. Congratulations to all of you. Your exploits have become integral to our nation's history and its success. And for that, I sincerely thank you.
The Apollo 11 crew is honored to receive the Congressional Gold Medal and accept, on behalf of our fellow Apollo teammates, all those who played a role in expanding the human presence outward from Earth, and all those who played a role in expanding human knowledge of the solar system and beyond. We thank the Congress very much.
My name is Walter Cunningham. I was the pilot on Apollo 7, which was the first manned launch of the Apollo space program back in the 1960s.
5, 4, ignition, GR.
When we lifted off on the first manned Apollo mission, after the preceding spacecraft had been disastrous, it turns out that our spacecraft was near perfect. It's still remembered as the longest, most ambitious, most successful engineering test flight of any new machine ever. And that was all a recovery from the Apollo 1 fire.
And now the world's #1 space photographer, Walt Cunningham.
We were excited about flying the first manned Apollo mission, but only later did we spend time thinking about the fact that this was the first of 5 giant steps to get us to the moon, and how ambitious the plan was. The first step is we tested the spacecraft. Second step was we crossed the psychological barrier of sending us out of Earth orbit and out around the moon. That was Apollo 8. On Apollo 9, we tested the lunar module for the first time, right back here in Earth orbit, to make sure it would work. Apollo 10, we went out and did a simulated landing on the moon down to about 50,000 feet, I believe it was. And then with Apollo 11, it was all put together and was amazingly successful. And as I reminded Neil Armstrong more than once, that was the only part that hadn't been done before was the last 50,000 feet. And nobody could have done it any better than Neil did. After the 1960s and the 1970s, I think the American public was pretty well satisfied that we'd accomplished something. The space race had been on in the 1960s, and we won the space race. So NASA then began to look at other things to do. The public was not as supportive, Congress was not as supportive, and it was very difficult to get funding for NASA's new programs. Congressman Hall, who has been on the Space Committee up there for the last 30 years. And his associates on that committee, they deserve the credit for keeping us in that business.
I had the great privilege of flying on the third construction flight of the International Space Station. It was something out of a science fiction movie. Nobody had been to the space station. There were only 2 modules at the time. Nobody had been there for over a year. And there we were, rendezvousing with this spaceship that had been in orbit, opening up a hatch. It was something out of your wildest dreams. Nice to have is not the mother of invention. Necessity is the mother of invention. And one of the great things that space presents us are very pressing needs. In fact, right here in Dallas, Texas, the first integrated circuit was invented by Jack Kilby at Texas Instruments. And in fact, he went on to win the Nobel Prize for it. But what most people don't appreciate is that that discovery didn't go anywhere for years. There was simply not a driving need for it. What gave the need, what provided the need to pull that off the shelf, to invest in it, to create the whole computer age that we are today, the information age that we are today, was the need that space presented. We needed tiny, small computers to go into space. And because we, as a country, made that investment to develop those small computers, that's what led to desktop computers, to laptop computers, to now cell phones. You can hardly buy a product that doesn't have an integrated circuit in it anymore.
The Apollo Command Module computer, which was really the navigational computer to get us to the moon and back, had 38 kilobytes. 34 of those kilobytes were not addressable. And we were able to develop the kind of software that enabled us to fly to the moon and back.
When you think about it, for thousands of years, human beings looked up at the night sky and tried to imagine what was out there. Tried to imagine what even those dots of light were for thousands of years. And we are so fortunate that we are the first generations to be taking these very first footsteps off of this planet.
Welcome to the Frontiers of Flight Museum. Can I see a show of hands of those of you that want to go to space? That's great. Well, let me tell you what you can expect. I got to go to space 4 times on the space shuttle, but you have the opportunity at your age to go to an asteroid, or to the moon, or even to Mars. And I'm jealous of that opportunity. How about one of you up here in the front? Can you reach?
What's the training like to become an astronaut?
Everything that we've accomplished to date, everything with any program that we've had, whether it's Gemini, Apollo, shuttle, or even our space station, will pale in comparison to the opportunities for young people today. I truly believe that we are going to be a spacefaring civilization. At one point, we will be moving among planets, among asteroids, among solar systems.
Growing up in a small town in Ohio, I watched Ohioans like John Glenn and Neil Armstrong and other heroes like Walt Cunningham go into space during Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo. And the whole nation, if not the world, was excited every time there was a mission. And I think we all appreciate that as the golden age of space exploration up to now. I think there is much more opportunity for another golden age in space, and we're just beginning to see that door open. Folks like Congressman Hall, and Congressman Hall specifically, has supported the space program through its highs and lows. And it takes that type of support at the congressional level to do the big things that were done by NASA over the last few decades.
Congressman Hall has done so much for our space program. His support has been unflinching, and without him, without people like him, we would not be where we are today.